welcome to the Spark of Ages podcast, where we're going to talk to founders, innovators, CEOs, investors, designers, and artists. I'm talking game changers about their big world-shaping ideas and what sparked them. I'm your host, Rajiv Parikh. I'm the founder and CEO of Position Squared, a growth marketing company based in Palo Alto. So yes, I'm a Silicon Valley entrepreneur, but I'm also a business news junkie and a history nerd. I'm fascinated by how big world-changing movements go from the spark of an idea to an innovation that reshapes our lives. In every episode, we're going to do a deep dive with our guest about what led them to their own eureka moments and how they're going about executing it, and perhaps most importantly, how do they get other people to believe in them so that their idea could also someday become a spark for the ages. This is the Spark of Ages podcast. In addition to myself, we have our producer, Sandeep, who will occasionally chime in to make sure we don't get too in the weeds with tech jargon.
Yes, that's me. And I'm occasionally chiming in right now. I'm really excited about this episode, man. I'm going to learn about automation.
Automation Nation.
I'm also going to count the number of times that you guys say workflow.
Workato.
You win if it's above 20.
There we go.
So really go for it.
Awesome. Well, we have Rishi Mallik, and I'm really pumped about talking to Rishi on this. He's an entrepreneur. He has worked in small companies, big companies, and acquisitions. He loves growth, which is a nebulous term, but it's enabled his company to grow and expand dramatically. And what I liked about him is that he could take really complicated concepts and distill them into fairly straightforward language. And then the way he drives a company's growth is by telling easy to understand stories about their complex technology. And Rishi's a super smart guy, lots of fun, and I'm just super glad to have him.
Those sound bites, you need to be good at that. He's a pro.
He's into bites and he's into recipes. So let me tell you a little bit about Rishi at Workato, which is the current company that he's at. Rishi is the SVP of Growth and Marketing for Workato, a new age integration platform allowing folks to automate workflows across the enterprise, taking something that was super technical in the past and making it accessible to all business users and also for technical users, allowing them to speed up the ability to drive rapid transformation across their organization. They are Gartner and Forrester leaders in the automation space. Rishi's career started in the consumer internet space at companies like Mozilla. Do you remember them? They were the early browsers in the modem days.
Oh, so when pictures were still downloading a layer at a time.
That's right. You had to hear all these beeps. Mm-hmm. And then after that, he worked at this company called Quik. So instead of going for one of the big companies like Google or Intuit, Rishi worked at this company called Quik, where he joined this founding team there in 2007 at the age of 21. So previously, the Quik service offered a mobile-based live video sharing website and two-way video conferencing application, FaceTime that allowed users to stream live video from their cell phones to the internet. At Quik, Rishi led business development, and at the age that he was at, he closed deals with 6 of the 7 top mobile handset manufacturers and 3 of the 4 top US mobile carriers. While he was at Quik, he later became the head of product for Quik and led the development and launch of the first mobile video chat application in the US, with 16 million users way back when. Quik was acquired by Skype for $150 million, and Rishi became the principal program manager of mobile for Skype. At Skype, he led video initiatives across all platforms, including the launch of Skype video messaging, which at the time had over 250 million users. And where did he start from? Of course, he graduated from Stanford University, where he studied engineering and business and was the VP of the Business Association of Stanford engineering students. And of course, he was the captain of, did you mean Bhangra at Brown?
Yeah, Rishi was the captain of the Stanford Bhangra team. What? I got to throw down with him because, I did some Bhangra back in my day. I wonder how he automated learning Bhangra. That's what I'm curious about.
There you go. Did you ever compete against them when you were Brown?
Well, we did go to the nationals. So we went to, there's a big national competition in Georgetown, but because ours was a Bhangra step hip hop fusion dance, we weren't allowed to compete in the, puritanical Bhangra only dance thing. So we were we ended up being the sort of intermission show, but we crushed it, because of course I whipped out some of my old gymnastic skills back when I still had moves, did some backflips, blew some
You
minds.
could do those backflips.
Yeah, it was great. Well, this is a great interview. So excited for you to hear it. So now let's jump to our interview with Rishi Mallik. We found out from Rishi's bio that you are a Bhangra Captain.
The Bhangra Captain.
I
right?
was a Bhangra Captain.
You retired now?
Very quickly. I'm retired.
Okay.
We were wondering,
All right.
like Sandeep also at Brown did Bhangra. So we were wondering if you guys actually competed against each other at any point.
Oh,
What year were you?
Interesting. At Stanford?
Yeah.
I was 08.
Oh wait, okay, no, you're younger than I am. I don't think we crossed paths, unfortunately.
What year were you?
We were 02. Yeah.
Okay. You may have crossed paths with my brother. My brother was on the USC Bhangra team.
Okay, maybe. I went 1 year to the finals at Georgetown. We did this whole competition. We were not in the competition because we were a fusion dance. Okay, we were a Bhangra step hip hop dance.
Okay.
Yeah. So we were more of a intermission act. But it was cool. It's really fun.
I wonder how do you score Bhangra?
Well, half of it is like how traditional can you be, and half of it's a bunch of these like whiz bang gimmicks, and how many sort of how many people can you put on top of each other, and so it's a little bit of both.
They check the audience and see how many people are out of their seats also dancing along with you.
You got everyone like turning the light bulb.
It's a light bulb turning technique and your shoulder and your shoulder.
That's right.
Technique.
How many light bulbs do you turn on? Yeah, exactly.
Sounds like one of Sandeep's videos. Okay, so Rishi, great to have you on with us today.
Thanks for having me, Rajiv.
One of the reasons I really wanted to have you as part of this podcast series is we are talking to great innovators, or people we believe are great innovators. And one of the things I really liked about you was you have this way of telling stories. You are able to take complex subjects and make it straightforward. And in the way you then drive it to market, it's an experimental method that you use. And you keep iterating on it. That, and plus this entrepreneurial background, right? I think when you were at school, or at Stanford, you joined all these startups and they all failed, but you kept going for more.
Just asking for it.
So I thought that like a person like that who's worked his way through startups, getting acquired at some point to bigger companies and just continuing with that journey would just be so interesting for us. So thank you for coming here. We've met on multiple occasions and I just actually really enjoy the story about Workato, the current company that you're at. It's in the application technology integration space, which is pretty nebulous, right? People will call this iPaaS. Mm-hmm. And one of my friends was saying, Workato, iPaaS company. And I was like, I just listened to their presentation and not once did they mention iPaaS. So help me understand how you guys think about marketing a company like that.
Yeah, it's definitely a journey. I think, well, first off, thank you for having me, Rajiv. But in terms of, so the iPaaS story is hilarious that you mentioned that because to be honest,
what does iPaaS mean anyways?
So iPaaS is integration platform as a service. So I think it's lowercase I, capital P, lowercase a, capital S.
Got it. I knew it was as a service.
Exactly. You can get self-driving cars as a service now, which is cool. But the interesting thing with Workato is it just depends on your audience, right? So like the gift and a curse that we have as a company is that theoretically any department inside an org can leverage Workato. Every department is using some sort of cloud system, some sort of cloud application. Those applications don't talk to each other, and how we do work across, with people and with our applications, it's not happening in just one application. It's happening across applications. And so getting data in and out and getting data to the right people at the right time to take action, that's really where you need sort of an integration platform. And so now you can explain that as an iPaaS, or you can explain that as automation or a workflow tool. So, everyone comes from any of these departments that end up leveraging Workato. They come from so many different backgrounds. I think IT is used to very much developer-heavy tools, and a lot of these integration platforms from the past were built as developer tools. And so iPaaS is much more of a common vernacular in that sort of.
I mean, I remember, I'm going to date myself again. There was this whole space called enterprise application integration. and it was super technical, and they'd come up with these super elaborate things. Right. I mean, are you guys sort of as EAI is to Siebel? You guys are sort of like the Salesforce of integration, like making it simpler, maybe the HubSpot or somewhere in between that. You're not Zapier, right?
Which is Zapier, which is a great product, by the way.
Yeah, or MuleSoft.
We're not MuleSoft. We were built for the cloud. Right. And, everything, a majority of work now is happening in the cloud. There's still some use cases for sort of on-prem systems, and we'll connect into them. But we're cloud native. We were built for the cloud. And the second thing is that we were not necessarily built just as a developer tool. So a lot of these, legacy, not even, I would say, platforms, but more so legacy tools, the only way that you could do integration before was it to be another way to code the integration.
Right.
We've now kind of obfuscated that to some degree where those integrations don't need to be coded anymore. They're already done for you. Now it's about bring your business logic to us, and you can easily set that up. That's no longer the long tail.
So you don't have to write code anymore.
You don't have to write code anymore.
Is that, they call that what? Low code?
Low code. In some cases, no code.
No
code, baby.
The thing is that if you do want to write code and you do want to also like bring in some of that developer horsepower, like the tool will allow you to do that. But a lot of, 80% of what you're trying to do with business logic doesn't require that sort of heavy lifting. Mm-hmm. And so we're taking that out of the game.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So here's what I want to know, Rishi. How do you describe, or how do your parents tell your friends about what you do?
It's so funny.
Why aren't you a doctor?
Besides that, that's always the first line.
I was pre-med for a quarter.
Oh,
and then
there you go.
Took organic chemistry, and then that was the end of that.
You gave them hope.
I gave them hope.
You gave them a glimmer of hope, and then pulled the rug out.
Fortunately for me, my brother's a physician, and so we kind of checked that box. So I got a little bit of leeway there. But my first company that we did was a company called Quik. It was in the consumer internet space. We built the first mobile video chat application. So essentially FaceTime before FaceTime. That company was acquired by Skype, and then Skype was acquired by Microsoft. And I was at Microsoft for, approximately 2 years and 2 days. And since then, and that was 2013. So it's been about a decade. Until this day, the only thing my mom remembers from anything in my career is that, oh yeah, my son, he worked at Microsoft. And
by the way, Rishi,
they remember the brand name.
I have a crazy story about the Microsoft. Okay. So early on in our startup at Position Squared, we started hiring these folks from India.
Right.
And the guy basically, after 6 months, quit.
Okay.
And he said, look, I have a plan. And I said, what's your plan? My goal is eventually to work for Microsoft. And so I'm going to work here, and then I'm going to take a job at SAS, and then I'm going to get to Microsoft. And I said, why are you doing that? And he said, well, I want to find a good marriage partner. And the best way for me to find a good marriage partner is to work for a prestigious company.
It's a resume
We're prestigious.
He needs more credits on his biodata.
There you go.
Biodata.
Yeah.
You got
to boost that resume. But to answer your question, that's the only thing my mom actually remembers from.
But if you have a chance to explain it to your mom today, she'll say, Rishi, what do you do? What do you say you do?
It's actually really interesting is that when I talked so I did a bout of venture capital before I joined on with Workato. And so in that regard, mom understood that, which was mom, we're working with founders and we're helping them go to market. And now I joined on with one of those companies to build out the go-to-market team. And so that was...
So it's like the Remington thing. I liked it so much.
Well, it wasn't that. I was asking for it, right? I was, living the life of a venture capitalist. I don't know if you're going to have any VCs on this podcast. It was nice being on the other side of the table. It's a very different lifestyle than being in the trenches and building out a company. But I missed that. I missed it was nice being on the other side of the table, but I missed that adrenaline rush of kind of being in the trenches and, those like burning the midnight oil. And so it's been now about over 5 years that we've been sort of building Workato, but it's fun to be back in it.
And you did it with one of the folks you worked with at Quik, right?
Yeah,
Bhaskar?
So Bhaskar and Vijay. So Bhaskar and I, we co-lead the marketing org at Workato. Bhaskar and I did Quik together, and then Vijay was the CEO of Quik. Vijay is now the CEO of Workato.
Wow.
Vijay's story is actually really interesting. So he was, his background dates before Quik. He was one of on the founding team of a company called TIBCO. If you've heard of TIBCO.
Yes, or maybe explain it for our audience.
Yeah, it considers one of the forefathers in the integration space back in the early 90s. And TIBCO, IPO'd, I think it was around 2004. And then Vijay was sort of brought on to Oracle to work with Thomas Corian and Larry Ellison to build out the Fusion middleware division of Oracle, which I think now is one of their most profitable divisions. But if you think about middleware, it's essentially sitting between software and hardware. And then when Vijay was at Oracle, he was an investor in Quik and then decided to join on full time. But fast forward to now, or before the beginning of Workato, Vijay essentially saw what the integration space has turned into and how much more opportunity there is there and how much work still needs to be done, right? It was still a very, like we talked about before, developer-centric sort of topic, and how can we really open up the possibilities to business teams and business work.
Right. I mean, so like even in the marketing space, right? There's some 11,000 marketing and revenue applications. And so in your mind, does the world need another application?
No. If anyone's seen the Martech, I think, what is it? It was used to be
Scott Brinker,
Scott
Martech,
Brinker. Yeah, it was like Smartech 7000. I think now it's even
11,000.
Is it 11,000 now? But if you've gone the last marketing conference that you've gone to, it's turned into really this over-optimized set of very narrow point solutions of the customer journey. So there's an application for this part of the journey and this part of the journey and this part of the journey. And if you end up spending money on a lot of these applications, what you end up building is a lot of tech debt, right? There's a lot of these applications that are sitting there with data silos. And so there are a couple of core applications that you need. You need your CRM. You might need a marketing cooking tool like a Workato or a HubSpot. You might need some way to do some sort of outbounding, like an outreach or a sales loft, and an enrichment tool. And once you have those sort of tools, everything else can kind of be stitched together. And that's really where, a tool like Workato would fit in to run sort of the rest of your go-to-market.
Right. I mean, you don't want to jump from application to application every time you want to do something. Like people are happy working in Slack.
Yeah, that's where people spend most of their time. Actually, it's funny you mentioned that, because what we've seen is that a lot of these automations are not just pulling data from one application to another. It's also getting data to people's fingertips quickly. An example of this is that we had a sort of like a business intelligence tool that was giving us some sort of usage data of potential prospects and sort of an intent-based tool. And a lot of that intent data lived on the website where somebody had to go and log in, and then they can pull the intent data. For the first year, nobody went and logged in to pull the intent data. But when we started just a simple automation to bring that intent data whenever it happened to people's fingertips on Slack, it was a complete 180 in terms of the ROI.
Right. You're turning shelfware into something usable.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so I'm trying to wrap my brain around all the jargon, but I think I'm getting it. Like, if you're trying to improve the latency, like between you being able to having to go find the data versus it sort of appearing, right? Like you're kind of decreasing the lag time.
What I like to call it, I like to call it like sort of the last mile.
You're the bird.
Right. If you think about it, there's so much, there's podcasts like this, there's so much material online to learn about strategies of what you can do or what you want to do or what you need to do. For example, you like picking, if somebody's bought from you before, there's a good chance if they go to a different company that they're going to buy from you again. Of course. It's a really good strategy.
My company lives on that.
It's a well-known strategy. People know that they need to do it, but then there's that last mile of the how. Like, how do I get that data to the right people to take action on it? And making that easier is really the difference between an idea and it actually being executed.
Right. So now all of a sudden you can basically say to folks, you can have something that monitors. Like on LinkedIn, someone moved from here to here. It then launches something, it then sends a signal that some application may be catching. Right. But then what you do with Workato is you enable that to be seen by the right person in their Slack feed.
Exactly. Another really cool one has been with sales reps is, it's always a tough thing after a meeting and you have another one coming up and you met with the prospect and you need to go into Salesforce and put in notes and so on and so forth, making it easier on them where, hey, that call just ended. Zoom knows that call ended. And then we also know based on their calendar or from Zoom or from Gong who was on the call. Let me go ping that sales rep on Slack and let them know, hey, you just had this call. We might be able to even pull tidbits from the call. If the call
it'll have some
recorded.
preset notes from the call. It'll already do the transcribing.
Transcribe for you. Hey, does this sound right? And then, oh, by the way, hey, were there competitors mentioned? Or like, what's the next step here? So they can go and do that themselves if they go log into their Salesforce or whatever CRM that they're using. But again, it's that ease of use that you're bringing to the table, which is game changing.
That's amazing.
Yeah, they scooted over to you on that bird. I get it. Very cool. So how did you become the senior vice president of growth marketing?
So the most nebulous term, what does it mean to be a growth? I don't even think it's marketing in his title. I think it's just growth. He's Mr. Growth.
I mean, the beauty of the title is that it is nebulous. Everybody wants to
When you go up to people, you're like, I'm the growth guy.
Yeah, as long as you want something to go up and to the right, that's growth. Unless it's cost, then you don't want that to go up and to the right. But I think of growth as a mindset. It really is a mindset. And, for us, we apply the growth mindset. My day-to-day as my team is applying that growth mindset to any sort of pipeline generating channel on the marketing side. So for us, that's events drive potential pipeline. The sales development org, the SDR team doing outbounding drives pipeline. The website drives pipeline. Any paid acquisition, SEO, SEM, those kind of things drive pipeline. But in terms of the mindset, the two things, there's two mantras, and if my team hears this, they're going to love it.
They're going to lose their mind.
They're going to lose their mind.
I got to listen to this again. Sandeep, we're going to bleep that part out for his team.
Thank you.
We're going to do a personalized version
good.
of this where if Rishi's team comes on.
Right. Yeah, because they would just exit out if they heard this. So one is, I call it the magic number of 9. And honestly, the significance of 9 is not very significant. But the reason I call it the magic number of 9 is basically the idea is having multiple approaches ready to any problem that you're looking to solve, right? So if we're doing, for example, we want to launch an ad for a product, right? To launch that ad, you can do it on multiple platforms. When you choose a platform that you want to do it on, you can choose multiple different formats. Is it text? Is it audio? Is it video? Is it animated? Is it a real human? And then you can also choose the demographic of who you're actually targeting that ad to. And so if somebody were to do an experiment, they have an ad budget, 2 teams have an ad budget, and they're going to go run that ad. The team that runs that ad to 9 different demographics with 9 different ad copy with 9 different images is inevitably going to be more successful than the team that runs it to one demographic with one image with one ad.
A simple
copy,
A/B
right?
test.
A/B test, ABC test, so on and so forth, right? So the multivariate testing. The thing is the academia has really taught us to get to the right answer as quickly as possible, and we're not tuned to doing this.
Right.
The
So
reason why,
we take an initial leap.
right.
And then we're like, wow, that's amazing. And I'm done.
Yeah. There's a confirmation bias. And,
Yep.
I think and this leads me to the second mantra, which is not just growth mindset, but I think it's also very important from an entrepreneurship perspective, which is know that you're not going to hit the nail on the head the first time around and be okay with that. Like if you are hitting the nail on the head the first time around every time, either you're Michael Jordan,
right,
or you're probably not reaching high enough.
You're setting your sights way too low.
Yeah, exactly.
You should never be in that spot.
Right.
Not if you're a real entrepreneur.
Exactly. If you're a real entrepreneur and you know that you're already going to fail, so you should have test 2, test 3, test 4 ready to go. And so those two things, we've taken that mentality to all things sort of pipeline generating, and hence growth.
So do they basically then come to you as part of this growth mantra? Is this growth? Do you have a growth framework? Mm-hmm. And you're forcing them, or you're looking for people who have that experimental engineering scientific mindset, and they're literally putting a framework in front of you how they're going to test.
I don't think if you don't have a framework, I don't think you can test. I think one of the beauty of my background is actually in product, and I think the beauty of some of the things that we can learn from product teams is product teams have very structured product management agile philosophies, right? So if you think about Scrum and things of that sort. But it's beautiful because it incrementally always leads to some sort of gain and at a predictable basis. So you know that if you're running week sprints, 2-week sprints, that you're going to have some sort of increment, and that you know that how long something might take and how many sprints, and therefore you can predict how long it's going to take. You can actually apply some of that to, in my opinion, to marketing. So we do that. So all of my teams have a backlog, for example. And they have funnels for their channels, And then they have benchmarks for those funnels. And then they have a backlog of how am I going to beat those benchmarks? So we're never stagnant at a certain benchmark. There's always some sort of incremental increase happening from that.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. It's hard to do.
It is.
I'd say as a person that started a company all about experimentation in marketing, right? Taking an engineering approach to marketing, you can say that and people will repeat it back to you. But when push comes to shove, a lot of times they'll go cheat and they'll go with the best answer. And I think the hardest part is to put that metric in front of them and literally keep going at it.
Showing it to them. Yeah. I think
and it's like showing it to the whole organization
right.
that this is where we're going. And then everyone has to get committed to it because people like to do, when slammed with a lot of things, people want to do the urgent, but not necessarily the important, right?
The important, right?
Yeah. There's also, I mean, this is why, again, going back to the importance of knowing that you're not going to hit the nail on the head the first time around. Like, I would like to see that number actually go down a couple of times, right? That means that we're actually throwing Hail Marys and we're trying something. Yeah. But to your point, making it visible, again, it's getting data to the right people at the right time, making it visible, like having monitors up in the office about the key metric is like a really valuable thing. It keeps everyone
Where'd you learn
centered.
that? Did you learn that in Quik? Did you learn that prior to Quik? Did you learn it at... It says in your background you have a degree in management and engineering. I don't know if that's a real thing, but
it's funny. My degree.
Where did you learn that, or did you learn it from your grandfather?
Was it? I went to Brown, so we could make up our majors. I don't know if that was the same thing at Stanford or not.
You could, and this sounds like a made-up one, but it's funny. So the major is management, science, and engineering, which is essentially 3 words put together. And when I first heard about
it's
it too,
an engineered
I'm like, okay,
major.
It actually means nothing. But the beauty of it actually is it's cool. It actually is, you do your first 2 years doing engineering fundamentals, and then you do your last 2 years doing a lot of B school courses. So a little bit of a technical background with the business mind. No, but I think I learned it, Rajiv, the hard way. A lot of those startups, for example, that I worked at when I was in school, like you said, most of them ended up failing, right? And so seeing just how not successful things are. When you're out of it, all you hear is the successes, right?
Sure.
You hear about the Facebooks and you hear about the Microsofts and the Amazons and so on and so forth. But then when you're in it and you see that the majority of people are not making it, or majority of these companies are not making it, you realize that the right answer isn't just right around the corner.
So did you come into Workato with that, or did you come into Quik with that? Because you did product at Quik, you did business development at Quik. Was there something that just resonated? Hey, these are people I enjoy experiments with.
What I learned is that in academia, you're trying to get to the right answer as quickly as possible.
Trying to get a 90 something.
And there is a right, but there's always a right answer.
That's right.
And the interesting thing is that in the real world, you don't have perfect information. So if you don't have perfect information, the only way to figure that out is by testing and iterating and bringing that into, I think that's the delta that we lose out from not having vocational learning as brought in. This is a whole different topic, but not having vocational learning more in the educational system. But that's where you learn is that, when you don't have perfect information, how do you figure out the right answer?
Well, I love this because, I have a 4-year-old and I think about this all the time, like about what his educational path is going to be, right? And this concept, there's a little bit of yoga in this to me, where you're describing that, like, being comfortable in the discomfort of knowing you will fail and that you should. It's almost redefining the idea of failure, right? It's like failure is just a stepping stone on the path towards successes, which I love.
I would even take it a different way since Rishi talked about, the notion of a growth mindset, right? So this is Carol Dweck out of Stanford, wrote the book on mindset, right? And I think the thing I just read it again recently, and I think one of the things that really resonated with me was that most of the time when we're learning, actually kind of hurts. So when you're in the process of learning something new, you're stumbling, you're failing, it doesn't feel good. So if you're comfortable, and just like you're working out, you're lifting, same thing, right? No pain, no gain. And so if you take that in terms of what you're doing at work and you become comfortable with that and say that, yes, I'm supposed to experience this difficulty and pain, not run away from it, that totally changes your mindset,
right,
and the mindset of others.
Yeah, and the other thing that I think is helpful is if you actually break that problem, that you're challenged, that whatever project that you're taking on, if you actually break it into smaller steps, what you end up seeing is that, because the end outcome might not be there, right? So like if you're trying to go from 0 to 100 and you're not getting to 100, you'll feel sad, right? But if you break that problem into 0 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30, then your 0 to 10 might be working, but your 10 to 20 might not, but your 20 to 30 is working, and you're getting, but you're
So
not
you are getting wins. You're getting wins along the way.
You're getting small wins along the way. And so that actually helps a lot mentally, breaking it down. But then what it also does is that it teaches you not to just either throw more into the top or kind of just like throw everything
Prioritize.
away. You prioritize like where your actual problems are along that journey.
That's great. Did you see that when you were like, so you were working on video, right? You got into video way before people were doing video back and forth, right? And I was at Disney once, way back. When we were at Epcot, they had those video phones. And that was like the next great thing. It was very Jetsons like. And then you get on it and you like, make your reservation on the video phone. Is that what inspired you guys when you guys were thinking about,
honestly,
I can do video to video communication? Were you thinking Jetsons, Epcot?
What really inspired me was I had just moved into my first apartment and I missed mom's cooking. And so mom cooks amazing Indian food. First had to get the list of ingredients, which was like 26 ingredients for one dish.
You don't get them in packs like you do today. Like I want the spice pack.
Exactly.
They'll give you the ingredients. They will not give you the measurements. I don't know if you have the same experience with your mom.
That was the problem, is that I got the ingredients. I'm standing there. I'm talking to mom on the phone. And mom's like, oh yeah, just a little bit of that and a little bit of this. And I'm like, Mom, what is a little bit? It tasted disgusting. Like I completely ruined the dish. That's where the inspiration came from. I was like, hey, how cool would it be as I'm talking to mom right now and I can show her what is a little bit, like what is how much, this spoon, that spoon, what color should it look like right now, those kind of things. And that was so my mom, even though she doesn't necessarily know what I do today, was my inspiration in that regard.
That's perfect. So you're fiending for dosa is really
better curry.
That's really what inspired you.
For the record, I still can't cook Indian food, but I can make some badass chai.
No, it's not, and it's not our fault. I just told my mom it's not our fault. We need cup sizes. We need teaspoon sizes.
There you go. Yeah. So, but you went into this direction, right? You could have worked for Google or Intuit or, still in Stanford here, you were just connected to everyone, right? So not hard to find a job at, even then, 2008, that's Facebook, right? You could have done that. Why go down this startup route? Did you just enjoy pain? Is that just fun?
Yeah, it's I know. Why not? I didn't know how much pain it was until I got into it.
Why not the easy path?
I had
because you were like 21, right?
I was 21. Yeah. I had an offer from Google. I had an offer from Intuit. An offer from McKinsey, and I met a gentleman at a Stanford networking event, and his name was Bhaskar, who we talked about earlier. And he had like a little demo of video chat. It wasn't mobile video chat at that time. It was from, web to web or phone to web. But it was still some sort of demo of it. And I remember seeing it and thinking to myself, like, man, like cell phones are the next big thing. And phones at that time, this is before the first iPhone, so we're really dating ourselves at this point. But the first iPhone, if you guys remember, it didn't even do video. When the cameras came out on these phones, they took photo and then slowly they started doing video.
It was basically an iPod phone.
Right.
That's what it was.
Right. So I remember sending him an email later that night, like a 6-page email about like, hey, how cool would it be if we did this on phones and whatnot? And then he called me up the next day and he's like, hey, do you want to come work for us? Like, this would be cool. And then I went to meet with them and it was 3 guys literally in a garage. So the servers were built out in the
Classic.
garage. We had our own servers at that time because of the latency of live video and so on and so forth. And then I remember thinking to myself, like, okay, that or Google. And it's funny, I took this course at Stanford my first year there and I only took it because my roommate told me that they had free food. It was
food is a big motivator.
Yeah, I didn't even know what the course was.
Clearly.
And he's like, it's 1 unit, they have free food, just join. And I just quickly signed up, and it turned out that it was called the Entrepreneurs Thought Leader Seminar. And basically it was entrepreneurs, CEOs, co-founders that were coming in and speaking on their story and what they've done. And then they were such prominent figures that even people from the neighborhood would want to come and see it. And that's why there was sort of food and networking afterwards. In any case, the first person that came to speak was Trip Hawkins, who you may know is the founder of EA, Electronic Arts. And just hearing his story in regards to his passion for video games and turning it into this, multinational or multi-international organization. And that was, now entrepreneurship is so well known. The concept of it back then, I mean, to a small select few was known, but my idea of entrepreneurship was starting your own small business, which is entrepreneurship, but I'd never seen it at this scale. And it was so nice hearing people's dreams turn into reality. And after I wrote that email and I saw kind of what it would be like to help build something from the ground up, that's really what took me there.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's amazing. It's an amazing story. Yeah.
Well, I'm reminded again of my 4-year-old. He gets this little tickle when he starts to like catch on to an idea, when he like really grasps something. Like he started to count to 100 and he just gets this little giggle when he like gets it. And I'm learning from him. I'm like, oh, I got to follow the tickle. Follow the tickle. That thing like where you see that video phone and you're like, oh man, this is something, right? And sounds like to me you followed the tickle. And you're like, okay, it's not Google.
Or maybe it was it something like that where there's this sensation you get. But I actually think that some of this is in a way you've had an experience much earlier, or you see something in your parents or your community or something that makes you say, that's interesting to me.
Yeah. My parents being immigrant parents, when I was in school, I remember I had a screensaver that had, just photos of the family. And there was one photo that I just kept as my background, which was my immediate family. And every time I was like before a midterm or a final exam, and I was just thinking about, man, like this is so hard. Like I would look at that photo and realize like how much easier I still have it than them who basically, they picked up their life in India and came here with nothing and started from scratch. And so, when times were tough, just thinking about that story, it really helped along the way. It was almost like, if I was afforded this opportunity, if I'm not taking these Hail Marys as well, it's just not giving it the service that it deserves. Yeah.
That's amazing. Like, I think a lot of this, at least for me too, I saw my parents take these risks. My dad will say, I came to America with a negative $1,100 in my pocket.
Wow. Negative $1,100.
In 1960, I took loans from various relatives who were going to collect. And he came to the U.S. and went to Oklahoma State. He actually could have gone to Berkeley. He didn't know the difference, just went to Oklahoma State. And they just went out. They came out of nowhere. They didn't, they're vegetarian. They didn't know what cheeseburgers were. Tried ones, like, holy shit, I had a cheeseburger, right? Or eggs, all this stuff. And they just made their way with not a lot of support. And so that's inspiring.
It is inspiring. Yeah. And it's for them, it was sustenance. Right.
Yeah.
And for some of us, it's not. And so it really, you got to reach deep to be able to throw yourself through the ringer.
Right.
But, like, again, it was one of those things where you don't have many chances at it. So why not? And if they could do it with much less, then there's no reason.
There's infinite room to go.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Awesome. All right. Hey, Rishi, we prepared a little game for you.
I can see the tickle.
We must have games.
So we found some quotes that, sort of pertain to stuff that we're talking about. And we want you to guess who the folks are that delivered the quote. See if you can figure out who it is. Are you ready?
Yes.
You nervous?
It's okay. It's okay. If you screw up, we're definitely going to play it.
The problem is going to be with somebody that I actually know and I get it wrong, it's going to be really bad.
But it'll be great for socials, so don't worry about it. It'll be perfect. So here we go. Here's your first quote. There are countless unpredictable forces that can influence the success of an idea, and the only way to know whether one is actually works is by testing it.
That sounds like something I would say.
Is that your final answer?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good job.
Trick question.
First one right. Excellent. Well, we love that quote.
I didn't know I sounded that official.
It's a strong one. All right, see if you can get this next one. All right. You're not always going to hit the nail on the head the first time around. This one's counter to what we've been trained to do in academia. Now, if you were listening closely, you might have heard that from this podcast. Who do you think said that?
That's me.
Oh, wow. Okay, 2 for 2. Wow, this guy's crushing it.
Wow, I can't believe it.
Unbelievable.
He's so quotable to himself.
Oh,
Here's a third one, okay? A common mistake is thinking that pouring more into the top of the funnel is the only way to increase the final output. It's often much more effective to optimize steps in a funnel versus adding more at the top.
Do I sound that efficient?
Funnelicious. He's a funnelologist.
I sound that
These are
boring
great quotes.
sometimes? Oh, man.
No, these are great.
Is that a dateline of yours?
That's your pickup line. One more, okay? We rise to the challenges. We will meet them. We're well prepared for them, and we'll get through them, and we'll emerge on the other side stronger.
That's not me, and I should know this one. It sounds very familiar. I'm lost for words in this one. I don't know.
It's okay. I don't know if he's your friend or not, so I don't want you to get in trouble. But it is another Rishi. It's Rishi syndrome.
Another Rishi who went to Stanford.
My parents were so happy when that happened, and then the next day was like, "Hey, that could have been you. You were born in the U.S. Why are you not the president yet?"
There you go. I mean, you didn't become a doctor. At least you could become prime minister.
Exactly.
All right, not bad. You got 3 out of 4. Listen, a little bit of failure, right?
You can't hit the nail on the head in the first time around.
You can't get every Rishi right.
You can't get all the Rishis right. I was going to do some ancient Rishis as well.
What do you have as your ancient Rishi one?
It was something from the Upanishads.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay, so this is like way back.
It was like,
when I wake up in the morning, arise,
it was like arise, awake, stop not till the goals reach kind of a vibe
Rishis are
to
the
it.
wise sages of our time.
That's right.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, Rishis are the sages of all time, apparently.
I mean, Rishis are the foundation of our experience.
Yeah, my parents did well on that one.
Okay, I have a couple of interesting ones to bring to you. At the Spark of Ages podcast, we are big believers that teamwork is critical to taking your individual spark to the next level. And so a couple of people that you mentioned, like one of them was Bhaskar Roy and Ramu Shankara and Nikolay Apkarev. Okay. So Bhaskar mentions, it was a pleasure working with him at Quik and Skype, and I can't wait to see what he goes on to accomplish next. So what was it like to have such a deep partnership with people like Bhaskar and Nikolay and Ramu?
It's really nice. And, Bhaskar and I we currently work close together, and we have in the past. And it's been really, it's one of those things. First, we complement each other. We're not the same person, which is a good thing, right? Because Bhaskar has this amazing bias towards action. He is a force, not necessarily, he's not steamrolling, but he is a force in terms of when a decision's made and to get something over the finish line. It's amazing to see him in action. And I really learned a lot from him in that regard. His bias towards action is phenomenal. And, I brought to table more of a totally different skill set in regards to experimentation and, bias towards action tempered with experimentation is even more powerful, right? And so we really have a close relationship there. And the nicest thing is that, Bhaskar and I can be on a call for 30 seconds and being like, hey, you're on this, I'm on this, cool. And it gets done, right?
Divide and conquer.
There's a lot of faith in both sides that we both don't necessarily need to be in the room, that it's going to happen in the best way possible.
You can count on each other.
Right. And I think that's the best thing about that relationship. And not even just in a work setting. I mean, we've known each other now for over a decade. So even personally, there's always that trust on both sides, which is nice.
So would you give that advice to other budding marketers or budding growth marketers or budding entrepreneurs?
I would say, for not even just in marketing, not even just in growth, I think it's good in the growth aspect to have somebody that sort of complements you, right? And it also helps with experimentation in terms of ideation. If you're going down one path, for somebody to give you a totally different perspective. I think in general, the thing that I tell people is, you can be as good as you are at your job, but if people don't want to collaborate with you, not that they're okay collaborating with you, but if they actively don't want to collaborate with you, that's going to sort of temper anywhere that you can potentially get. And so I think really having those relationships are equally, if not more important than just how good you are at your skill set.
At your work, at your job. That's right. Now, other than our significant difference that you like the Lakers and I like the Warriors and the Celtics.
Sandeep's got me on that one.
Yeah, I'm a Celtics fan. So, no, I do not have you on that one. I have the opposite of you on that one.
I had to throw that in there.
Other than that point of difference between
where are you
ourselves.
living now, Sandeep? I hear you're near...
I'm living in LA. Okay, you got me. I'm living here. Okay, and actively rooting against every team.
I must say, though, when we saw the Red Sox beat the Dodgers in the World Series, the fans there,
lovely.
We were in Game 6, and Sandeep got us the tickets.
in LA.
In LA.
Yeah. It's Game 5.
Game 5?
Yeah, they won it in 5.
Oh, that's right. We crushed them. When we got in Game 5, and the fans, after the Dodgers lost, they weren't like typical fans where they'd boo them or they just walk out. They stuck around and they partied with us. It was the most, the folks in LA were, after that, I rooted for the Dodgers when they went for the World Series. Because I was like, you know what, if they're that kind, that's just unbelievable. But
some good fans.
Yeah, other than that point of difference, I love all the stuff that you're talking about. And I'd say if you were to start something new and say you weren't at Workato and so dedicated to what you're doing, what would it be? It could be a book, TV show, movie, podcast, video game. If money was no object, what would you do?
Yeah, I've thought about this, and it's interesting. We talked about the growth mindset and how, we talked about it in the context of technology, SaaS, B2B SaaS, but it can be applied anywhere. And really taking that approach to industries that, in my opinion, haven't been as disrupted, right? So you think about, for example, the real estate industry, a lot of room for disruption. You think about the medical industry. There's amazing innovations that are happening, but still a lot of room for disruption. And so, I think there's a couple of ideas that I've been thinking about in that regard, but also a lot of things that we talked about today, I've just been putting on paper in my free time. And so now it's turned into this doc that's, 20, 30 pages long.
Nice.
And I don't know where that's going to go. But it'd be interesting to...
I smell a book deal.
Say, it could be a podcast deal.
I'm pitching to Mr. Hollywood over here. So hopefully something comes out of it.
With a forward by Rishi Mallik.
With a quote from the Rishis of the ages.
Yeah. Every wish you have on time. There we go.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic.
There's one other thing that just came to mind, and this has just been something top of mind for me and my team, for any of the go-to-market folk, whether it's technology, whether it's B2B, whether it's retail product, whatever. Just market and sell how you would want to be sold to. I think the number one tool in our toolkit that people use the least is asking themselves the question of, would I go to this event that I'm trying to throw? Would I respond to this email that I'm trying to send? Or how would I respond to this message that I'm giving to my customer or my prospect? It's the thing we use the least. It's just, it boggles my mind. I am, at our company, for example, I'm the number one buyer of technology, which is not something to be proud of, but building out the marketing stack, like
it's a huge thing you have to do.
And so I'm dealing with vendors on a day-to-day basis. And, I haven't read a white paper on any of these technologies before. But the typical B2B sales tactic is to put out
jam a white paper down your throat.
That's right. And
that's a real lead.
And then enter your email address, and then someone's going to follow up on that, right? So just let's think about, as marketers, as go-to-market, and again, it's not just in technology. Let's just think about like how we would respond to that. Same thing with events. I'm not going to go to an event where a vendor is going to talk about themselves and their customer stories, right? I'm going to go to an event where my peers are there and I get to talk to folks in that industry. And if they happen to be using an interesting technology or tool, that's going to garner my interest. And if they throw an event like that, that's going to be a favorite.
Yep. And you know what? I would say this. And the best part of that advice is what, Sandeep?
Well, what was it? I don't know. You tell me.
It's free.
It is free.
If you just look at it from your own perspective, it's free. And all people like free.
Right.
So thank you so much, Rishi. I thought it was fantastic today. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Let's do this again.
Yes, let's keep doing these.
This is great, man. Okay, one last thing before we go. Head-to-head, Brown versus Stanford. Who's got the better light bulb? Here we go right now. Rajiv, you get to decide.
Ready?
Do we get
Let's
some
go.
music?
Who can do the better?
Versus light bulb.
We'll add music. Don't worry about that.
You got the shoulders. You got the shoulders
go.
in there. See that? You see that? There you go.
The shoulders. Oh
Get
yeah,
some leg action. You can't get that, but
It's a tough contest. I think Sandeep practiced more before he got in, and he's much more of a performer. So I'm going to give it to Sandeep. Sorry, Rishi.
Wow, really? I was gonna say
Rishi did better with the shoulders, but Sandeep did better with the turning of the bulb. So
he also had sound effects, which
wow,
is nice. I'd give him that.
We'll split it. We'll split it. It's
we'll
fine.
Split it, and we'll even go to a Lakers Warriors game.
Let's do it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
So what'd you think?
That was really great. It was amazing talking to a person that's just throughout his entire life has taken chances and done it to make the world a better place. And this is more in the technology realm, but he's gone from consumer to business tech, which is in a way doing a lot of things in the background that we don't realize. And I think the one thing I would take away from all this is how he embraces the notion of failure and turns it into an asset. My favorite point was how he, in college, would just join up a whole bunch of startups. And
yeah, that's nuts.
Didn't matter. Like, he'd just join them and they would fail and they'd flop. And he then combined that with what he did at Stanford to turn it into the science of experimentation. He called it the rule of 9.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. I was mostly just doing improv in college, so that's
well, you were doing your own form of failure.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
I was definitely getting in front of audiences and just throwing yourself out there. That's
definitely feeling
cool too.
I think my takeaway, was how he was so inspired by family. Ultimately, like sort of finding out that his spark was from this desire to connect with his mom and connect with his culture and his food, and then I think that theme of family, it didn't hit it over the head with it, but ultimately it was like in that whole finding your own Bhaskar,
yes,
finding your own counterparts, like finding your own family in whatever you do, because you need that team in order to succeed as well. And so I don't know, I feel like that was
I'd say he integrates all that. Yeah, he integrates that so well.
Yeah,
with the way he lives. It's
yeah,
just really amazing.
I'm gonna work on that.
Great inspiration. All right, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the pod, please take a moment to rate it and comment. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, everywhere podcasts can be found.
All right, the show is produced by me, Sandeep Parikh and Anand Shah. Production assistance by Taryn Talley. Woo-hoo. Edited by Sean Mayer. And
I'm your host, Rajiv Parikh from Position Squared, a leading growth marketing company based in Santa Clara, California, Silicon Valley. Come visit us at position2.com. This has been an Effin' Funny production. We'll catch you next time. And remember, folks, be ever curious.